Good time of day, guys. My name is Godzi, and welcome back to another episode of Higurashi When They Cry, Ch.7 Minagoroshi. Last episode, Rika and Oishi talked, and Oishi was basically like, "Yeah, but if Takano did it," and she's like, I guess that's possible, but why?" And then she talked to Irie and Okanogi, and Irie was like, and Okanogi was like, "Hey, no. No, didn't happen, not true." And now Rika apparently doesn't know what to do. Yep, alright. I don't know how close we are to the end of the chapter. This could be the finale, but if not, probably one or two more episodes after this, if I had to guess. I don't freaking know. I don't remember much of what happens at this point, so... yeah, other than, like, you know, the literal fucking end of the chapter. So, yeah, let's just get into it. While Satoko was at school, I washed the dishes. Hanyu would usually stay with me when Satoko wasn't around, but she's not here right now. It's been a while since I was all by myself. I never thought anyone could feel so lonely while washing the dishes. I'm going to die today anyway. This world is ending today. Why should I wash these dishes? That's because I'm thinking about Satoko, who will have to move on with her life after tomorrow. I will encounter a new Satoko in the next world, but I realized something after hearing what Satoko told me earlier. After I'm dead, I wonder how Satoko will move on with her life. The worlds that I've left in the past all went on without me. Well, no. I wonder if Satoko will be able to cook without me. I wonder if she can go shopping on her own. I wonder if she can wash her clothes by herself. I wonder if she can collect dust in a mass grave. I've been avoiding thinking about this, but Satoko and my other friends must have been overcome by sadness. It's too late for me to think about this, but I started feeling like I want to cry. I'm feeling like this because I don't want to leave this world. This is a world that I've always wanted. It's my hope that I can continue to live in this world beyond June 1983. After a long journey, I finally ended up in this world. But I was able to truly live in this ideal world for only one night. The night of Watanagashi. This world will be shattered again after I die tonight. We finally saved Satoko, and all our friends assume that our happy life is returned. However, I'm going to die tonight. They will mourn for me. We worked so hard to make a miracle happen, but they're going to lose their happy world in just one day. Am I going to start a new life in the next world, as if nothing happened? I'd live 3 days in my new world, but 3 sad days were going to pass in this world. That's no good. I can't think straight anymore. I couldn't stop the tears from flowing from my eyes. I hugged Satoko's pillow and cried. I could smell her scent. After I die, Satoko will probably hug my pillow and cry just like this. Is everyone else going to cry for me too? I'm sure they will. And they'll be sad. Not about my death. They'll be sad not because I'm dead, but because I never told them about what was troubling me so much. I wonder if they're going to feel regret. Will they wonder what they could have done to open up my heart? What they could have done to help me in my time of trouble? Will they wonder what they could have done to save me? I felt miserable and frustrated. I held Satoko's pillow and continued to cry. In the next moment, I heard the phone ringing. I tried to ignore it, but it wouldn't stop ringing. I picked up the phone, hoping that my friends would call to check on me. However, I heard a weird guy's voice coming from the receiver. Hello, this is Okanogi Gardeners. Is this the Furude residence? Okanogi. It was Okanogi from the Mountain Dogs. It was the first time I'd received a phone call from him. Oh, it's actually him? It said man, though. Whatever. I'm calling because I have something urgent to ask you. I called the school, but they told me that you're sick today. Are you feeling alright? I'm not alright. This is the day I die. I knew he had no idea, but I still couldn't help but feel upset. It's only a cold. I just want to rest today. Really? Well, that's a very fortunate coincidence. What? I had no idea what made him say that he was glad I was sick. Why is it okay. Why is it fortunate for you if I'm home? Well, we got a tip from Tokyo that someone's planning to murder you. What do you mean? Tokyo was investigating the murder of Tomitake-san and Takano-san. Their investigation concluded that there's a high possibility Dr. Irie is pulling the strings. Irie is behind everything? This is the first time I've heard something like this. This isn't something that happens at random. It's the very first time. That means it's not just a coincidence. I'm hearing this now because of something that I did differently in this world. I've done many things differently in this world, though. I can't tell which decision led me to this result. However, maybe this is something that could change my life drastically. Okanogi continued to explain to me. There had been budget cuts to their research, and they were scheduled to be shut down within a few years. Irie was strongly against that because he was embezzling their research money by requesting bigger and bigger budgets. Because they were going to cancel the research, he tried to sell the research data and make a lot of money off of it. Is that really true? I know it's hard to believe, but it really is. I always thought that he was kinda suspicious myself. I think I can say with certainty that Irie is not that type of person. I've been around him for years, and as far as I know, he's not a bad guy. He doesn't even have the guts to be one. He pretends to be cold-hearted for the sake of his research, but he can't shake his regrets. He's simply a nice person. It's hard to believe that he was embezzling money from Tokyo. I'm starting to be suspicious of Takano, but she's actually a nice person too. She seemed mean at times, but she could also act as innocent as a child. However, I'm starting to suspect her because Oishi told me that the body they found in Gifu might not be Takano's body. When was the first time we actually got that information? I can't remember. Like, we've known about the burned body in the mountains since Watanagashi, but was it Tatari-Goroshi that they mentioned the time of death is off? Or was that, Sumihoroboshi? It was one or the other. I don't think it was in Watanagashi, was it? Might have been Mayakashi. I don't think it would have been, though. I don't think there was really any mention of Tomitake or Takano that arc. At least their deaths. I can't remember. I know we knew about it at the latest by Sumihoroboshi, but I don't remember when it was first introduced. Because based on that, you could definitely... No, wait, yeah, it was definitely Tatari-Goroshi. Because Keiichi was just like, oh yeah, because I was at the festival last night, but Takano's dead, and they were saying that she was at the festival last night, but she's been dead for too long for that to be the case. Yeah, it was definitely Tatari-Goroshi, right? I think so. I don't see why it wouldn't have been. But when did he get told that? And when did we get told that? Was it just a tip through Oishi? Like, was it just a tip and we saw Oishi and Kumagai talking or something? I can't remember. But, yeah, I was talking last episode, about how I think Takano, like, wasn't... I felt like she wasn't overtly suspicious, but was also, I guess. Like, her and Oishi, I think, personally, were the most suspicious from arcs 1 through 6, but that's mostly because, like, both of them always have relations, like, in some way to whoever goes crazy that arc, in one way or another. But I received a comment last episode saying that they thought Takano was suspicious from the get-go. I'd have to pull up the actual comment, but I, of course, am screen recording, and I don't know what I have open in my web browser, like if it's my Facebook or something, and I don't want to leak my name, or my email, God forbid. Or porn, if you want to go that way. I'm just kidding, it's 11 a.m. But, yeah. From what I remember the comment saying, it was basically like, it was either Takano or Irie, and Irie was introduced, like, halfway through the questions arcs, so it was very unlikely him. I can understand that. Like, I suppose yeah, Takano, very suspicious. But then I also feel like Higurashi, at the same time, did a really good job at making Tomitake, Takano, Irie, and Oishi too suspicious to be suspicious, you know? But then, of course, that all cancels out, and then it's just like, okay, well, it's Takano. So, yeah, I think I brought up last episode how my friend Evan easily guessed after Tatarigoroshi in the anime who was behind it all. He was just like, I have an idea, looked it up, and he was like, yep, I'm right. Because that's how Torture Chamber works. He's allowed to look things up, Colby's not. So Colby has no fucking idea. Like, I asked him who he thinks is behind everything, and he's just like, I don't have a clue. So I asked him, who do you think is not behind it? And he's like, again, I don't have a fucking clue. You can't even rule out Tomitake for always fucking dying. But, whatever. So I can understand people saying Takano is super duper suspicious. But, yeah, like, I feel like the mystery of who's behind everything in Higurashi is definitely easier than Umineko. Umineko was pretty difficult. I didn't get it till chapter 6. And you can technically get it probably as early as 3, really. And Kokonia is just up in the air. Like, I have no fucking idea. Mostly because I'm not even done with phase 1 yet. I'm probably nearly halfway? I don't fucking know. Doesn't matter, though. Let's just continue reading. Okanogi works for Takano. That means I can't trust Okanogi. In other words, I can trust Irie, because Okanogi is clearly just trying to set him up. On the other hand, if Takano isn't guilty, I could be making a huge mistake. Yet it always seemed to me as though Tomitake and Irie were good friends. If Tokyo had suspected that Irie was embezzling money from them, Tomitake would have treated him far more coldly. Anyway, at the very least, Tomitake of Tokyo didn't have such a bad impression of Irie. The Irie of the Irie Institute and Tomitake of Tokyo were good friends. Tomitake of Tokyo and Takano of Tokyo were good friends. Takano of Tokyo and Okanogi of Tokyo were superior and subordinate. But Okanogi of Tokyo says that Tokyo is suspicious of Irie. This doesn't make sense. Everyone seems to be good friends at first glance, but the links don't connect from start to finish. Irie thinks he has a positive relationship with Tokyo, but Tokyo is suspicious of Irie? That's just odd. The chain should be connected, but one of the links is twisted out of order. It's breaking the loop. Tokyo is conducting further investigations at the moment. We also have information that Irie is trying to use you as a bargaining chip. For that reason, we've been told to tighten up your security starting today. That's why I'm glad that you're at home right now. There are 20 security guards patrolling the Furude Shrine in 3 shifts. You may not notice, but they're there for you. That's a lot of security. How long are you going to guard me like that? Until Tokyo feels you're no longer in danger. Until this whole case is resolved. That should have been good news for me, since today was the day I was supposed to die. This is exactly the kind of security I wanted. That's why I let Takano into the ritual storehouse. However, I have a bad feeling about this. Tokyo should be my ally, but that arrangement is just like Irie's relationship with Tokyo. Everything seems in order from my end, but when you trace it the other way, it feels like something's off at some point. I have this uncomfortable feeling because I have a few uncertainties about Tokyo. Tokyo and Irie have strong ties, but they're suspicious of him? Is Irie actually a bad guy? Is Takano still alive, and is she the one who killed Tomitake? Those questions and more made me uncertain about accepting help from Tokyo. I'd thought Tokyo, as a single organization, would move with a single intention. But in reality, they have multiple different intentions. In other words, there must be multiple... what's the word? I see it in the political section of newspapers all the time. Ah, right, factions. Are there 2 factions in Tokyo? One that wants to remain friendly with Irie, and one that looks down on him? That would explain the irregularities I'm sensing. Maybe I've been talking to Oishi too much. If he hadn't told me that he was suspicious of Takano, would I have believed Okanogi without a doubt? Well, maybe not. Even without Oishi's theory, Okanogi still sounded very suspicious. Irie was loyal to his research on Hinamizawa syndrome. Tokyo understood this, so his relationship with Tomitake wasn't particularly strained. Plus, Irie isn't the type of person who would commit embezzlement. He's a law-abiding citizen with a good moral character. Of course, he has some ambition as a researcher, but that only goes as far as common sense expects any researcher to. It's nothing like the criminal aspirations that would lead to major embezzlement. A great number of the mountain dogs were going to be guarding me. This is what I'd been wanting in my previous lives. But for some reason, I couldn't be happy about it. I couldn't help but feel depressed. If this house is like an empty birdcage, then they'd be the fox with feathers stuck to its face. I don't know if I can really trust the people who are protecting me. I tried to recall more about Okanogi. The mountain dogs have been protecting me for years. Okanogi proved his skills in many of my other lives. To them, I'm something of a special existence. If something happens to me, it would be a disaster. The Irie Institute is there to keep Hinamizawa syndrome under control, and the mountain dogs are there to protect me from evildoers. So why would they try to betray me now? I thought about it for a while, but I had no idea. I just know one thing for sure. I can't feel comfortable with the protection of the mountain dogs alone. I want someone other than Tokyo protecting me. But I bet such a person wouldn't believe me. Wait, what about Oishi? I've been keeping in touch with Oishi since the other day. He still thinks that the mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa are all plotted by the village authorities. If he believes that, then he might believe that my life is in danger. For him, I'm a special person with lots of useful information. The mountain dogs hate the police, though. When I asked them to assassinate Satoko's uncle, they refused because he was being watched by the police. I would feel relieved if the police were guarding me along with the mountain dogs. That way, the dogs wouldn't be able to harm me, even if they were working for an evil faction of Tokyo. Besides that, if my suspicions toward them turned out to be baseless, more protection couldn't hurt. I'm sure that double security will keep me safe. I understand. I'll stay home for today. Yes, please do. And please don't go out into the city and try to pick a fight with delinquents. Meep. Sorry about that. Anyway, please take care of yourself. I have a cold, so may I at least go to the clinic? You never know what might happen, so please don't go near there for a while. I don't want them to inject you with anything suspicious. Irie would never do anything like that. That's what we want to believe. But you need to be careful of him until things are cleared up. So, I have no choice, huh? No? You've totally picked up the local dialect, Okanogi. I used to have a normal Tokyo accent. I like to think I can fix it when asked, though. After all, it's my job to blend in with the local culture. I finished speaking with him. As soon as I hung up the phone, I opened my phone book and looked for the number to the Okinomiya Police Department. It was nearly noon. Felt like the pages of the phone book were sticking to my skin. I must have been in a hurry. I really don't want to die. I want to stay in this world. I don't want to leave this perfect world. I'm trying to do something because I don't want to die. I'm trying to live with all my might. I'm trying to enjoy my life. For the first time, I was spending my last day positively, without drinking wine until I was drunk. You know, I wonder how exactly Takano and the Mountain Dogs feel in those other arcs. Like, she just said that sometimes on her last day, she'll drink until she gets drunk. Like, the Mountain Dogs storm into the house, and they're just like, hello, meep. Did someone already poison her? What the fuck? What do you mean she's drunk? I don't know. There's 7 fucking beer cans on the floor. Hello, it's Oishi. Sorry for the wait. I was getting ready to leave for Gifu Prefecture. I was going to browbeat them until they owned up to botching the case. Gifu? You're talking about Takano's body? Yeah, my colleagues are convinced that the body is Takano, but I'm still not satisfied. That's why I'm going there myself. If that body isn't Takano, this is going to be a whole different story. We can put out a search for her as a material witness, see? Fortunately, I have lots of connections in the Gifu Police Department. I'll go have a nice, long talk with them. It looked like Oishi was proactively moving forward with the investigation. If that body really is Takano... There are so many mistranslations. What the fuck? So many typos. Did they not get a proofreader for Minagoroshi? I guess they also didn't get a good coder. Christ. You know, now I am worried that Matsurubayashi will crash as well. I might just screen record it just in case, if I can get like halfway through the chapter and it doesn't crash. Because like, didn't the release schedule for the Steam release of each Higurashi chapter slow down after Sumi Horoboshi? Like, they released them 3 months at a time or something like that, but then they waited like a year for Minagoroshi and like a year and a half for Matsurubayashi? What the fuck was going up with that? Like, jeez. If that body really is Takano, it would be sad for her, but it would give me reason to trust the mountain dogs. If that's not Takano, then it would tell me that she's part of this whole incident. No matter what the result is, it will give me some kind of hint. But only if I'm still alive. But really, it's unfortunate. Oishi is leaving for Gifu. He can't be around to protect me. Oishi, some stranger called me today. I don't know who it was, but he said he's one of the villagers. He didn't tell you who he was? I see. Please, go on. What did he tell you? He told me that someone is going to kill me. He said they'd kill me tonight at the earliest. Is that true? I see. That's not outside the realm of possibility. I see. I have to leave soon, but I'll send some officers over there. I'll tell them to keep you safe. You're home right now, right? Do you have a cold or something? Just stay home and lock your doors and windows. Now send someone over immediately. What's wrong, Oishi-san? You'll be late for your appointment. I just got a call from Rika Furude. Someone called to warn her that she was going to be murdered. Someone is trying to kill Rika Furude? But why? I thought she was like the village mascot. It might be a warning for contacting me about the incidents in the village. I don't know if they're really trying to kill her, but she's just a young girl. I'm sure she's very frightened right about now. Plus, if we lose her trust now, that might hurt our relationship in the future. 2 or 3 officers are enough, but please send them over at once. Also, get a hold of her local officer and have them reassure her some. Yes, sir! Rika Furude might have some kind of hint regarding the mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa. Oishi couldn't let her die. We should head back to Hinamizawa as soon as we get the Gifu Police Department to spill the beans. This is going to be a pretty tight schedule for our business trip. This will be a piece of cake. Okay. Back to Chip Skylark. This is Skylark. A local police officer is on the shrine property. I don't remember what he sounds like, the dude from Fairly Odd Parents, but whatever. He's heading towards R's house. Roger. Continue observation. Encountering R. She let the officer inside. R called the Okinomiya Police Department. She requested protection on her own. Did she tell them about us? She told them that she got an anonymous call. I'm sure that's made up. The Okinomiya Police Department is sending a few more officers to her location. What? Doesn't she trust the mountain dogs? This is trouble. It's going to prove more difficult to continue the mission. Is it possible that she somehow found out? Well, we're probably safe. Just tell the team to be aware of the officers. We don't want them to become suspicious of us. Roger. HQ to all units. There are police officers around the Furude Shrine. Please be mindful of them. We may have to postpone tonight's mission. I'll call her, but I'm sure the Major will order a go anyway. Everything's already set up for R to be discovered dead tomorrow morning so we can move to the next stage. But we don't want the police to suspect us. If they start suspecting you, just leave quietly. Oishi had called the officers pretty quickly. The officer who was in the area arrived within 10 minutes after I spoke with him. He asked me what kind of phone call I received today. I decided to make up a whole story. It'll be all over if they check my call history, but I'm sure Oishi won't bother doing anything like that. He thinks I'm worth protecting, because I have information about the incidents in Hinamizawa. The policeman is one of the villagers, so I know him very well. More officers are coming here from the Okinomiya department. The officer told me to relax, because he'd stay with me until then. Oishi must have thought I was frightened half to death after getting a threatening phone call. My chair sucks, I can't move in it. After about 30 minutes, 4 officers in plainclothes arrived at the scene. The local officer returned to his police box. We've heard the whole story. We'll guard the shrine, so please call us if something happens. Detective Oishi will be here this evening. I was relieved to hear that Oishi would be coming here. Thank you very much. At least one person will be downstairs. I'm sorry, but is it okay if we use your restroom? Also, will you give us one of your spare keys, just in case? Sure, you can use the restroom too. My house is on the 2nd floor of a storage building. The 1st floor contains emergency supplies for the village. I'm happy to know that at least one police officer will be there for me. The officers confirmed their positions on the map of the shrine. One will be in the storage building, and 2 more will walk around the shrine property. Also, 1 more officer will be standing in front of the stairs that lead to the shrine. This world's Oishi is certainly reliable. In my other lives, Oishi tended to look at me as his enemy. However, in this world, he thinks I'm on his side. I'm sure it's because we all became friendly with him around the time we saved Satoko. It was unfortunate at the time, but perhaps the return of Satoko's uncle was a necessary event. If Okanogi was right about Irie, he wouldn't be able to come near me with 20 mountain dogs and 4 police officers protecting me. If Okanogi is the bad guy, they'd be discouraged from acting by the presence of the police. Not too different from giving garlic to a vampire. This is the best protection I've had in 100 years. Even so, am I still going to be killed tonight? I need to do whatever I can. I should struggle as hard as possible. I won't give up. I won't even think about my next life. This is what enjoying life is all about. This is what living seriously is all about. Hanyu, are you there?
I'm here.
What do you think about all this?
I have to admit, I've never seen anything like this before.
Is it still wrong for me to expect something different this time?
I'm not going to hope for anything. I'll just have to accept whatever the result is.
Hanyu was still acting like a bystander. I knew she was going to say something like that, but part of me was hoping she would say something more positive. Upon hearing her say what she did, I felt a little disappointed, and wondered why Hanyu refused to be anything but an onlooker. I always thought it was normal for her to be that way, because she's a special existence. I also convinced myself I had to be an onlooker too, since I was a similar being. However, I can't just let go of everything and become a bystander. I can't become like her. I can't stop hoping for a better life for Rika Furude. That hope was betrayed so many times, and my heart was crushed countless more. That's why I stopped expecting anything to turn out the way I wanted. So, is Hanyu the same way? Are you also afraid of being hurt? I've only lived for 100 years, but I know how frightening it is to have high expectations. Hanyu should also be aware of that, since she's lived far longer than me. I always thought that Hanyu was a special existence, but except for the fact that she's invisible, everything about us is the same. She has the same thoughts and feelings as everyone else, yet I still saw her as a special existence. That's why I just assumed that her mind worked in a different way.
I've been living for longer than you. I know that there are more sad things than happy things in this world, and that your hopes will always be betrayed. That's why I don't want to be hurt anymore. So you're not expecting anything from this world either? I still have hope that this world might be different. But you think I'll just be killed again? Ow. That's not what I'm thinking.
Hanyu looked uncomfortable. She had no doubts that I'd be killed again that night. That's what it means to not have hope. But she just can't own up to it, because she doesn't want to hurt my feelings. You're the same as Satoko. You're waiting for some stroke of luck or some miracle to come and help you. You're afraid of fighting. You think that being patient is the same as being strong. That's how I was until just a little while ago. Hanyu looked down and bit her lip. She couldn't deny what I said. I know that you've heard it over and over. Miracles will not happen unless everyone works together. That means you have to believe too. A miracle will never happen unless everyone believes in it. What I just said sounded as though I was blaming her for the miracle not happening. Maybe I was too harsh on her. I stayed quiet, and Hanyu continued to look at the floor, shaking. Then she looked up at me and spoke. I noticed sadness, but also a little bit of anger in her eyes.
I can't even touch people or talk to them. You think I'm just like everyone else, even though all I can do is watch. Do you understand how it feels not to be involved in anything?
There was a slight severity in the tail end of Hanyu's speech. Except for me, she can't communicate with anyone in this world. She hates to be reminded of that. I'm sorry. Let's stop this. I don't want to have a fight with you. I don't want to spend the rest of the time I'm alive in an argument.
I don't want to argue with you either.
But let me just say one thing. You're my friend. I don't want my friend to tell me not to expect too much out of my life.
I'll apologize for that. But you should try respecting my opinions too.
She can be very stubborn sometimes. Hanyu seems weak on the outside, but she actually has a very strong moral code, one that she wouldn't bend for anything. She apologized to me, but she wasn't being honest. She still wasn't expecting anything good to come from this world. She still thinks that I'm going to die pitifully. That's why she refuses to believe in miracles. I've been living with her long enough to read her mind. I feel bad for her in a sense. She's been living too long and lost all of her hope. Hanyu told me to call her if anything else happened, and soon disappeared. I'm sure she's still around. She's probably still watching me as if she's watching a TV show. The time of my death is slowly approaching. Will I be able to survive this time? It's been a long time since I faced this fear without drinking wine. Dun dun. Alrighty. Do we get a tip? Do we get an achievement? Do we get something? No. Okay. I was left with nothing else to do after washing the dishes and cleaning the room. The mountain dogs and police were protecting me. Just in case, I figured I should leave something behind for Satoko. Should I write down some recipes for her in the notebook? Will she be happy if I leave a will for her? I laughed at my own foolishness, yeah. No one would be happy to read a will. If I die, they'll be devastated and wonder why I didn't talk to them. That's exactly how I felt when Satoko didn't ask for any help when her uncle was abusing her. I wonder, will I be killed before Satoko even comes home? My memories of these days are never very clear. The day I die is always vague in my recollections. It's fine if I'm murdered before Satoko gets home, but if I'm murdered after, then would they kill her along with me? I don't want that to happen. It's bad enough already that I end up killed. If Satoko's murdered along with me each time, that'd be too much to bear. Just how much have I ignored other people's sadness with that rash idea that the world ends when I die? Thinking about that made me feel truly ashamed of myself. I turned on the TV to try and reduce the silence, but it didn't help at all. Worse, not only did the TV not help with my fears, it felt like it symbolized Hanyu and my allies, making me feel even more unpleasant. It was past lunchtime, nearly 3 p.m. School should be out soon. I'm not there today, so they probably won't do a club activity. Satoko should be home shortly. It seems I'm going to survive until she gets home after all. If she comes home and asks me what's troubling me, I might end up telling her the truth. If I talk to someone, that person will be demoned away by the mountain dogs. That's why I've never spoken to anyone about it. I didn't want my friends to get into danger. But if Satoko was also murdered likewise in every world because she was involved with me, then we're doomed to share the same fate. It's better to know the truth than to be killed without knowing what's going on. But I'm under very strict security right now. I might be able to survive in this world. If that's the case, I shouldn't talk to Satoko about it. It won't be so easy to talk to my friends after all. Moments later, I heard a surprised yell of Satoko's coming from downstairs. She'd returned. It sounded like she was scared to see a stranger in her home. I'd have to tell her that the police were here. That would be tantamount to telling her that someone is out to kill me. I don't know how to explain it to her or how much I should tell her. However, my thoughts were soon interrupted by the noise of a crowd. Satoko hadn't come home alone. Everyone is here.
I'm home! Hey, Rika! What's up with that officer downstairs?
Why is that guy guarding your house? What the heck did you do?
Me-chan, that's not the right question. What happened to you, Rika-chan? There were some strangers on the shrine grounds, too. Are they also police officers? This isn't normal, you know?
We don't know what's troubling you, but we're all here to cheer you up. It looks like something bad is going on. I couldn't stop laughing upon seeing everyone rush into my house all asking the same questions. It made me feel as though being depressed all day had just been a waste of time.
Rika, what on earth is so funny? You need to explain to us what is going on.
There's nothing to explain. I'm getting murdered today.
What?
Everyone already knew that I'd been telling people about how I was going to be killed, but they were surprised to hear it from my own mouth. Hey, Rika-chan! I heard that from you yesterday. You told me that you think someone is trying to kill you. But I thought that was one of your jokes then. Now though, you're not fooling me anymore. You have to talk to your friends! Keiichi spoke with a harsh tone, as though I'd made him upset. As my friend, he must think that it's unforgivable that I didn't talk to him about it. He wasn't the only one feeling that way, though. Every single one of them was looking at me with worried expressions on their faces.
Rika, everybody here saved me. I want to do something for my friends as well.
I'm glad to hear that.
Remember what you told me. You told me to have the courage to fight. But just look at you. You're not even fighting yourself.
Whatever, I'm bad at speaking. Satoko pointed out something that I've already realized. I had no way to argue back.
You told me that you'll put us in danger by talking to us. But all of us are already involved, no matter if you talk to us or not.
That's right. We're your friends. If you're in danger, all of us are in danger too. Well, that is true, actually. When Satoko was in danger, we all fought for her, remember? It's the same thing.
If your life is in danger, then I think it's time for the Sonozaki family to step in. We're way more reliable than the police. Isn't that right, sis?
That's right. You have to talk to us. What kind of trouble are you in? Who the hell is threatening to kill you? Based on how you're acting, I assume you don't even know who it is. If you did know, it wouldn't be as big of a problem.
Meep.
You're all so smart. You know everything, even though I haven't talked to you yet.
This is not a time for jokes, Rika! You must talk to us! What's happened? What's this all about? You don't call the police unless you're really in danger, no?
Well, you might want to speak to a lot of people in the United States.
How dare you talk to the police before talking to us? Is the cause something you're uncomfortable talking to us about? Rika would never have any issue that'd be uncomfortable to talk about.
Calm down, Satoko. Rika-chan is the leader of the Furude family. She's worshipped as the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama in this village. She might have been in trouble for a long time, even though we didn't know about it. Maybe she just didn't want to talk to us about such trouble, because we're all trying to have a fun life here in this village. That's probably what it was, right? Jesus Christ, Keishi's omniscient.
So it has something to do with Rika-chama in the village. It must involve those crazy old people who worship Oyashiro-sama.
So it must have something to do with the curse of Oyashiro-sama. I know. I bet it's related to what happened to Tomatake-san and Takano-san.
Why would Tomatake-san's murder cause Rika-chan's life to be in danger? That's too big a leap.
It's crazy just to think that someone is trying to kill her anyway. Rika-chan is bound by more obligations than we know, and she probably couldn't talk about them. I'm right, aren't I? You always fucking are, Keiichi, Jesus. It's not a very fun topic, which is why you couldn't tell your friends, right?
I cannot believe this. Is it really true, Rika? Is it really true that you're involved in Tomatake-san's murder case?
I remained silent, but with my mouth open. I hadn't answered any of their questions, but they continued to ask, and it eventually hit the nail on the head. It was more surprising than anything. But then again, these are, after all, my beloved clubmates. I laughed once more. My issues and my secrets are so devastating to me, but they stopped sounding like such a big deal when everyone talked about them together. They knew exactly what was going on without me saying a word. In that moment, I realized just how powerless I am. I had to tip my hat to them. Everything seemed so foolish now. And so I decided to just tell them everything.
If you want me to talk, I will. But I'm sure you won't believe me.
We will. As long as you tell us the truth, we'll never doubt it. Everyone's expressions turned grave as they vowed not to make light of anything I told them. And so, I'm going to tell them everything. I want to see if they really will believe me or not.
In that case, I'll tell you. I think I'm being targeted by the same person who killed Tomatake and Takano.
Then, are they the true culprit behind the series of mysterious deaths?
I don't know about that, but it is possible.
I don't understand. Why would Tomatake-san and Takano-san's murderer also want to kill Rika? Oishi thinks Takano is the culprit. Okanogi thinks that Irie is the culprit. No, he doesn't think it, he knows he's not. Either way, it sounds like someone from Tokyo is trying to kill me. I can't tell if it's Takano or Irie, but I do know that to them, I'm like a trump card. In order to explain everything, I need to talk to them about the relationship between Hinamizawa, Tokyo, and the Irie clinic. I don't think they'll believe me. It's such a ridiculous story. But who would ever believe it if not my friends?
You'll all be in danger if I talk to you about this. Are you sure you still want to hear it?
Of course! If you're in danger, we're in danger. He really is omniscient. Everyone nodded at Keiichi's words.
Well then.
I'm going to see how everyone reacts. I'm going to ascertain what friendship is all about. With a nod of my own, I opened my mouth and began to explain.
There's a disease unique to Hinamizawa. I'm not sure what it's officially called, but I've always known it as Hinamizawa syndrome.
Everyone glanced back and forth at each other when I mentioned the term. They'd never heard of it before. The name Hinamizawa syndrome has actually been around since before the war. It's the general term for severe homesickness and mental instability that people from Hinamizawa experience when outside of the village. Is it raining? No, it's not. Wait, is it? Sounds like it is, but there's no rain hitting my window. What the fuck? No, it is. Okay, whatever. I just heard pitter-patters and got confused. People in Hinamizawa have refused to leave the village since the era of Onigafuchi. The villagers believed that they'd be cursed by Oyashiro-sama if they left, and people who did often came back because of that curse. In general, it used to be thought of as only severe homesickness. But during the war, soldiers from Hinamizawa became mentally deranged in faraway places. That does sometimes happen in war. What was unique about the soldiers in Hinamizawa was the way that they killed their own comrades and committed suicide at the end. One doctor became curious about these cases and studied those soldiers. That's when they found out that it was actually a disease only found in Hinamizawa. According to this doctor, Their strange behavior was not the result of their culture. It was a mental disease triggered by external circumstances. A mental disease with an external cause is different from a psychological illness. It's the result of some kind of physical disorder, and it causes people to become mentally unstable when something triggers it. There are 3 categories of externally caused mental diseases. Jeez, is it raining harder now? Okay, I like rain, but why is it loud today? Traumatically induced, substance abuse induced, and chemical imbalance induced. Traumatically induced disorders are cases resulting from damage to the brain from trauma or infection that influences the mind. This is the reason personalities can change as a result of head injuries. Substance abuse, as the name suggests, refers to cases where drugs, especially alcohol or stimulants, have influenced the mind. The last category is chemical imbalances. These are cases where some ailment in the patient's body causes abnormal secretions of bodily chemicals, which then influence the brain's functions. This may sound odd, but it's been said that people tend to become depressed when they have a cold. We've all experienced the ways in which physical sickness can cause a buildup of negative emotions. However, with chemical imbalances, the cause is more direct. People's emotions aren't born from our hearts. Everyone should know logically that they're the result of chemicals secreted by the organs in our body as necessary. So when the organs operating the secretion of those emotional controllers malfunction, it causes them to secrete abnormal amounts. The thyroid gland, for example, secretes hormones that regulate emotions. When that gland is defective, the balance of those hormones becomes unstable. This can cause people to have not only a physical sickness, but also a mental sickness such as depression. People don't get mentally ill just because of mental problems. Human beings are made out of meat. We get mentally ill when that meat is defective. I like saying meat in a weird way. The doctor studying Hinamizawa syndrome also came up with a theory. He suggested that there is a pathogen endemic to Hinamizawa that, if its hosts stray too far from home, affects the chemicals in their brain and causes them to hallucinate. The villagers' belief in Oyashiro-sama is certainly related to this endemic disease. People in Onigafuchi village knew about this syndrome. They knew that they couldn't survive outside the village. They also didn't want anyone else to enter the village because they would get infected too. They took this disease as a curse, not a sickness. The most significant symptoms of this disease are antisocial behavior and an extreme persecution complex. The eventual suicide caused by defects in the lymph nodes are also another unique characteristic. The unusual behavior of terminal patients is what inspired the legend of the demons coming out of the swamp and attacking the villagers. Basically, sick villagers developed severe persecution complexes and wound up killing other villagers. After a long time, survivors of the disease started to comprehend its rules. They discovered that the disease is incurable once you contract it. That's why they started barring outsiders from entering the village. Also, once you become ill, you will begin developing a persecution complex. This can happen to anyone in the village. The doctrine of Oyashiro-sama says that the blood of humans and demons was mixed together, and that Oyashiro-sama has control over the violent blood of the demons. People said that you'd be cursed if you didn't follow Oyashiro-sama's rules. That could also be understood to mean that as long as you followed Oyashiro-sama's rules, you could cope with this endemic disease. This is what was meant by the scripture in Oyashiro-sama's legend that said they appeared, unified the humans and demons, and made them live together in this village. Then there was the most important part, the rules to prevent symptoms from appearing. Those rules are the taboos, and people were strictly taught that Oyashiro-sama would curse them if they broke those rules. The horrible, bloody traditions of the village were probably performed in order to force people to respect these taboos. There are several ways to keep the disease under control, but there are 2 main conditions for doing so. The first one is to prevent suspicion. When the villagers are suspicious of someone, it can trigger their persecution complex, which can lead to them developing terminal symptoms. That's why they made sure to have such a tightly knit community, so that people wouldn't suspect each other. Since the terror of Oyashiro-sama's curse is emphasized, many don't know this, but she's also a god of marriage and neighborly love. However, this condition is not as important as the other one. Indeed, Oyashiro-sama isn't even recognized as a god of friendship in Hinamizawa anymore, and is only worshipped as such in Okinomiya's Hirasaka district. Huh. Now for the other condition. This one is much clearer and was practiced more strictly. If villagers leave Hinamizawa, they will fall ill quickly, proportional to the distance from the village. Villagers nowadays will not get sick as rapidly, even if they leave town or even go out of the country for a long time. However, long ago, they would fall ill as soon as they left the village. It's very unfortunate that Keiichi got infected so soon after he moved to the village. It was also very unfortunate that he got sick just because he left the village for a few days to go to his relative's funeral in that one world. Oh. That was the significance of the train scene. Oh. All this time and I didn't understand that. Jeez. And that was like the first fucking scene in Onikakushi. Huh. Okay. That's why Hanyu felt so bad for him that time and kept on apologizing over and over. Oh. Okay. Although no matter how much she apologized, he never heard her voice. Wait, what? Then was he... Wait. Am I learning things about Onikakushi that I didn't know beforehand? What? The scene with Rena standing outside his house saying sorry, was that actually Hanyu and he was able to see her but hallucinated her as Rena? What? That's not right. Is it? Maybe he hallucinated what she was saying? Or I don't fucking know. What the hell? This turned into a long discussion, but these rules etched around Oyashiro-sama's curse represent the ancient wisdom of how to cope with the Hinamizawa syndrome. Is there any way to use this mental disease for military purposes? The aforementioned doctor insisted there was, but the military didn't listen to him at all at the time. They were interested in developing a weapon that can make a dramatic change to the war efforts. They didn't have any money to spare for the research of this strange disease. In this way, research on Hinamizawa syndrome was abandoned. Then the war ended. Japan started its reconstruction under American leadership. However, some powerful people in the political world didn't want to accept the American way of thinking. Based! Some of them were fired by the GHQ, but they still stayed on as advisors to the government, since Japan has a culture of respecting the elderly. Eventually, a political organization was formed, the object of which was to restore Japan to the way it was before the war. In the beginning, this organization was a very small group. It was just a gathering of 2 or 3 individuals who shared the same ideals, blowing hot air at a restaurant. Those 2 or 3 hit it off with each other and grew to the size of a class reunion. That group became a rather sizable organization. Eventually, eventually becoming a political one. Well, it'd be more accurate to call them a secret society. The secret society eventually came to be called by the name of the place where it was based, Tokyo. There are many mysteries about Tokyo. One thing I knew for sure is that it was composed of old men from Japan's political stage, ones with strong power to indirectly influence the government and vast assets that meant they could work from the shadows. They were also connected to various corporations, and their goal was to return Japan to the way it was before the war. Of course, that was a pretty ridiculous goal. It was nothing more than an idea in their minds immediately after the war, back when they were still bowing their heads to the occupation forces of those white barbarians. Once Japan's post-war reconstruction began, Tokyo steadily became a shell of its former self. But it didn't totally become a shell, it cooled the fat. Japan regained its peace, and years passed. However, some people still continued to believe that Japan had been better before the war, and they were determined to return the country to those times. So this Tokyo plotted how to restore pre-war Japan from many angles. They approached the problem economically, internationally, and militarily as well. Japan has no nuclear armaments due to the 3 non-nuclear principles. In other words, This country has to brown-nose America as long as they hold nuclear weapons. The #1 priority of Tokyo is to be independent from America. They want this country to be on equal footing, and to obtain a weapon of mass destruction that isn't nuclear in nature. Oh. That was the reason why they started thinking about utilizing Hinamizawa syndrome. Yo, let's drop this shit on Sacramento. However, they couldn't study this disease openly. In order to utilize it for military purposes, they had to hide the existence of the disease itself. So, they enlisted one young researcher, Kyosuke Irie. I need to make it clear that Irie isn't some far-right supporter of the secret society. Let's go! He's just a young, capable doctor and an earnest researcher. He published an innovative thesis, but other academics thought he was too radical. However, that convinced Tokyo that he was the only researcher suitable to study Hinamizawa syndrome. As someone young and ambitious, Irie was thrilled to take on the project of studying this rare disease with a large budget, a large staff, and his own facility. But researching the disease would mean that he'd end up infected too. No one would want to take on such dangerous research. He really was too young. With his other option being wearing down his youth working hard at the night shift for a local practice, he wanted to answer the expectations of the sponsor who carefully selected him. In the end, Irie was able to uncover that, as hypothesized, the Hinamizawa syndrome was a unique infectious disease, and he developed both a treatment and a vaccine. Irie was extremely talented, clearly. How old is he? Like upper 20s, probably? The Irie Institute was formed to study the disease. Irie was nominally the head of the organization, but Tokyo still sent out a supervisor, because when all was said and done, he was just a researcher. That supervisor was Mio Takano. Takano's job at the Institute was to act as a go-between for Tokyo and Irie, manage the research progress, and preserve its secrecy. The latter was the most important part of her job. She had to do her best to prevent people from finding out that Irie was researching the disease, or even that the disease exists at all. I forgot to check what his fucking sprite is, so I was hoping he'd show up again. Remake. A lot less ugly. It actually makes him look like Okanogi. That's actually a pretty good sprite, I would say. And then there's this. The Mountain Dogs were formed for that purpose. They were under Takano's command, and their job is to prevent the Institute's secrets from being discovered. The Mountain Dogs are one special forces unit specializing in unconventional warfare and owned by Tokyo with its vast influence on the SDF. Tokyo had set their eyes on the likelihood that a small, elite squad of covert operatives would be a trump card in the anti-nuke era, so they vigorously investigated those options. This was a worldwide trend. Since the Cold War, everyone avoided sending troops directly to their enemy's doorstep. Japan was also trying to be part of that world. As a result, by 1983, even the police have been forming secret special forces units. Prefectural Police Squad 2, the ones who intervened when Rena laid siege to her school, changed their name to Zero Company, and grew into an anti-terrorism squad that handled hijackings around the Kansai airport area. The National Police Agency Squad 6 was formed as a counter-terrorism squad for Narita Airport too, and they later changed their name to 7th Company as well. They theorized that in a world where nations possess nukes that they can't use, small, elite special forces disrupting metropolitan areas would be the new way of waging war. So in 1977, they developed the SAT's predecessor, the Special Task Force SAP, to serve as the National Police Agency's trump card in securing the peace. Likewise, the Japan Coast Guard established their Special Task Force, the SST, in anticipation of unconventional warfare on the coast. There are several known special forces units in Japan. When they hear a phrase like Special Forces, most people tend to think of a movie or a comic book. However, these units actually exist and are protecting Japan in secret. During the famous incident of suspicious boats off the coast of Noto Peninsula, Oh my god, the text actually gets cut off, good job. The news reported that the helicopter squad trained in gun battles was headed there, but was recalled because the suspicious boat sank, and that was because the Coast Guard's SST acted. However, the news never mentions the SST or any other Special Forces unit. After all of these units were established after Tokyo made a suggestion about it to the government. Researching military tactics under the name of peace and order worked perfectly for Tokyo. But since the mid-century anti-war movement made people resent those forces, these special units have been kept secret as of 1983. Furthermore, these units are not all formed under the jurisdiction of the police. There are still many other military units that are kept secret from the average citizen. The Mountain Dogs are actually one of those special units. They specialize in kidnapping, espionage, and preserving secrecy. You might as well call them an assassination unit. They were around during the dam conflict as well. Tokyo worked to put an end to the dam project because of the impact it would have on Irie's research. The Mountain Dogs were the ones who kidnapped the Minister of Construction's grandson, I figured. Most people believed that the Sonozaki family was at the center of the movement, but in reality, the Mountain Dogs were responsible for many of the things the Sonozakis were accused of. So in that sense, the existence of the Sonozaki family was an advantage to the dogs. Their main job after the dam conflict ended has been to continue keeping the disease hidden from the public. With the spread of information networks in the modern age, the media jumped onto any unusual incident and quickly aired it to the whole nation. Tokyo doesn't want the disease to be known nationwide, since they're trying to utilize it for their own purposes. The main task of the Mountain Dogs is to kidnap people suffering from Hinamizawa syndrome. They pose as gardeners, but in actuality, they patrol the village to make sure nothing strange happens. They're the ones who demon away people who go missing. They're probably also involved in some of the mysterious deaths, too. The last important person is Jiro Tomitake. I don't know his real name. He was an auditor who was sent from Tokyo 4 times a year. He came to check on the progress of the research and outlined requests from Tokyo. He discussed the research budget with Irie, too. He also got the observation report on Irie from Takano. That was his purpose. Irie started out by studying the autopsy results of dead villagers, and he discovered many answers from that. In 1979, the Mountain Dogs kidnapped the culprit behind the murder of the construction chief, who was a terminal patient of Hinamizawa syndrome. The nature of the disease was dramatically clarified. Their research made rapid progress after that, and they discovered a vaccine, medication, and other methods of treatment for the disease. At the same time, they continued to investigate how to utilize it for military purposes. One of the interesting findings of the research was that the pathogen can only be found when the patient is still alive. On top of that, they couldn't detect the presence of the pathogen at all unless they used a certain inhumane method. In other words, it's virtually impossible to detect the pathogen by normal means. It left almost no trace, and the unusual symptoms it produced seemed like voluntary behavior, so they concluded that the disease could be used to their advantage. However, Tokyo has been going through some changes. It's been almost 50 years since the war ended. The leaders and shadows behind Japan's government who ruled from the center of Tokyo began growing infirm and opening up seats, steadily passing their leadership to the new generation. The whole organization has started to shift. Of course, the purpose of Tokyo has remained the same. It's still a secret society of ultra-nationalists who want Japan to be at the top of the world. However, their ambition to start a war with America and take over the world has diminished. Tokyo has directed its priorities towards the economy, international affairs, and education. That doesn't mean that those ambitions are gone entirely, however. Several seniors still alive retain those ambitions. Tokyo continues to finance military research. But for the present-day Tokyo, Irie's research is actually something of an embarrassment. The new Tokyo is no longer interested in this project, and they announced that they're going to cut their budget as soon as those seniors pass away. However, Irie objected to that plan. He strongly appealed for the continuation of his research. This is what Okanogi was talking about. Irie is in disagreement with Tokyo. Irie's research has been making great progress. They've discovered various treatment and testing methods, and he's even starting to develop a treatment plan for the whole village. If they cut his funding, Irie's research would end without any results. Tokyo had a discussion with Irie through Tomitake, and they decided to shut down his research partially, but not fully. However, they told him to immediately stop researching military applications of the disease and destroy all the research data related to that. He had little interest in weaponizing the disease anyway, so Irie accepted those terms right away. Tokyo probably believed that it was better to let him find a cure for the disease than to terminate the project entirely. At this point, Irie considers himself one of the villagers. Perhaps exterminating the disease infecting the villagers without their knowledge is his way of atoning for using the village to advance his research and reputation. Both Tokyo and Irie agreed to fully terminate his research as soon as he discovered a way to completely eradicate Hinamizawa syndrome. Irie made a plan for the next 3 years, and he promised them that he would find a resolution by 1986 at the latest. The meeting they had this June was to discuss the plan and budget for the next 3 years. Which brings us back to the beginning. One theory goes that Irie is in opposition with Tokyo, and as his trump card, he's planning to kill Rika Furude. The other theory is that Takano killed Tomitake, and as her trump card, she's going to kill Rika Furude. I suppose I need to explain why Rika Furude can be a trump card. The answer to that lies in the ancient traditions of Hinamizawa. Supposedly, members of the Furude family have the blood of Oyashiro-sama in their veins. I explained earlier that Oyashiro-sama was made up as a method for having people cope with the disease. However, that's actually not true. For the demons, the pathogens, to survive, a certain being must be present. That being is the successor of the Furude family line. The truth behind the advent of Oyashiro-sama and the coexistence of humans and demons is that Oyashiro-sama was actually the queen of the village. According to Irie's research, Rika is adored by the whole village not only because she's a charming little girl, but because she's the queen carrier. Infected patients are unconsciously driven to protect their queen. Irie says that this is done with pheromones. Rika Furude's mother was also adored by everyone since she was little. However, as soon as she gave birth, people's attention quickly shifted to Rika. Irie calls it the succession of the throne. The queen is a precious existence to people in this village. There are theories that carriers of the disease are actually unable to survive when away from the queen, not from the village itself. Irie's research indicates that the queen can only survive in Hinamizawa, and infected patients can only stay alive when they're around her. But this is just a theory. Surprisingly, however, the doctor who first discovered the syndrome was also aware of the existence of the queen. That doctor was also knowledgeable about Hinamizawa's culture, and he was interested in how much value the village placed on the Furude family. He theorized that the queen lying in the Furude bloodline might have the power to manipulate the whole village. The truth is still unknown, but perhaps the Furude family really has held such power since ancient times, miraculous power that would make them perfect for serving in the priesthood. Although the only thing Rika can do is be doted upon by the villagers. If all this is true, then the question is what would happen if the queen disappeared from the village. During the war, a doctor prophesied that if the queen were to die, then all the infected would show terminal symptoms, and the whole village would be wiped out. He advocated for strict preservation of the queen's host. Rika is important to Tokyo not only because Irie found many answers after running tests on her body. If Rika Furude dies, even 2,000 people in Hinamizawa will turn into demons. It would happen too fast for people to even realize that they're getting sick. They will each be overcome with a violent persecution complex and start killing each other out of fear. This is why the mountain dogs are protecting the queen, Rika Furude. Her death spells the end of the whole village. That's why Rika Furude is the trump card for those who know that she's the center of the whole epidemic. This is the story of Hinamizawa. Our tale begins in June 1983. Tokyo's liaison, Tomitake, was found dead of the disease even though he was vaccinated against it. On the same night, Takano was also kidnapped and murdered. Though I don't know for sure if she's really dead or not. Rika is also going to be murdered soon enough. While I've suspected Irie and Takano, this was my first time doubting Tokyo. I always thought that they were on my side. They had to be. My death would lead to nothing but disaster. At the same time, there might be people within Tokyo who could use my death as a trump card. I never considered that there were opposing factions within Tokyo. I guess I was naive enough to not realize that Tokyo had internal problems due to the generation gap. Anyway, I wouldn't be feeling this way if I didn't suspect that Takano might still be alive. I feel like I'm starting to see the greater picture. It's possible too that Takano is the victim and Irie is the bad guy. The mountain dogs might be on my side, or they might be assassins who are trying to kill me. I was too scared to choose a wine that might be at risk of having something poisonous mixed in. In which case, I could rest assured with a fresh, unopened bottle, even if it was a little bad. After telling everything to my friends, I finally realized that I could only trust them and the police. I'm really dumb. I thought I was thinking so hard, but I never actually understood anything. After all this time, I made things clear just by talking about them with my friends. I never have thought it would make such a big difference. Ooh. And then it crashes. That would be very funny, wouldn't it? Alright, I think this is probably a good stopping point. I don't know how close we are to the end of the chapter, but I imagine we're probably a couple hours off. So again, probably 1 or 2 more episodes, maybe 3. I doubt it's 3. But I think I've been saying 2 or 3 more episodes for 2 or 3 episodes now. I don't freaking know. Whatever. That's going to be it for this episode, guys. If you liked it, then be sure to press the like button. And if you didn't like it, then fuck you too. Remember to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on all my videos and stuff. And as always, my name is Godzi, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye! Yeah.